and welcome back to the Corporate Burnouts podcast. How you doing, Mandy?
Doing so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Recording from afar, but we made it. We are still here, and we are back with
Yes.
another guest.
Yes, I really would like to welcome Kelli Risse to the podcast. I'm going to read your bio so that I get everything in there because it's amazing. All right. Kelli Risse is a peak performance executive coach, professional speaker, and author whose mission is to help overworked, overwhelmed, and overstressed high achievers shift into peak performers to avoid or recover from burnout. With a unique blend of certifications in neuroscience, communication strategies, and emotional intelligence, Kelli delivers transformative results that help her clients succeed personally and professionally. Her compelling insights and practical strategies have earned her features on ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, and numerous online media outlets. The first book in her 4-book series, Succeed with Ease, became a bestseller and landed #2 under Mel Robbins. Nice. Kelli is the CEO of Winning in Business, podcast host of Winning in Business, and an international best-selling author. When she's not speaking or coaching, Kelli enjoys playing golf and attending live theater, concert, and St. Louis Blues hockey games. Welcome to the podcast, Kelli Risse.
Thank you so much for
Welcome.
having me. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
very
very
excited
good.
about it too. And by the way, Mandy, great job. Great job reading and not making up words while you try to get that out there. That was an impressive bio, though, Kelli.
It is so impressive, and I'm an excellent reader. But I always mess up whenever I'm reading, especially when I'm trying to be like on and reading, but I nailed it.
Well,
When I
you
do
nailed
my
it.
podcast, that's the hardest part of the show is reading
Mhm.
someone's intro. I'm like, why is this so difficult?
Yes.
Yeah, getting words out
It
sometimes is.
is.
Well, I'm very excited about our topic today. We have talked numerous times, about burnout, right? Like that's the whole premise of our conversations in general. But I'm so excited about what you bring to the table here, just with your experience and your leadership and the value that I think that you could add to some of our listeners who maybe are stuck in it or don't know how to recognize it, or if you do recognize it, how to pull yourself out. So I'm super thrilled that you are here. But first and foremost, like we got to start from the beginning. Tell us about your background. I know your corporate background is a little bit different than ours, so I'm excited to hear about it.
Yes, it really is a little bit different. Granted, I was in the restaurant industry at one point in time. I mean, I have been in some corporate, but most of my career has been in education. So I was in charge of building up leaders and training leaders that were 7-year-olds. I come from, I was a first grade teacher, a fourth grade teacher, and did that for 15 years. And, what I found for myself is that I called myself a high achiever and felt like I was truly doing everything right. Okay. So I'm raising a family, I'm being a mom, I'm really taking care of the 20 plus students in my classroom. I am making sure that my lesson plans are spot on, the dishes are done, like everything. But y'all, ladies, like what would happen is I would wake up really early in the morning and drag myself to caffeine. And then I would get my kids ready, get out the door with some, yelling along the way. I would have my full day at work. And then I would come home to be taxi mom, right? Like many people are, and, making dinner and getting kids to sports and blah, blah. And then by the time we got home, I get them to bed. Now I have to do all the things for myself. I need to be grading papers. I need to be logging, making sure my lesson plans are fine, logging in grades, doing all those things, as well as taking care of my house. And, sometimes at 11:30, I'm slamming cabinet doors as I'm emptying the dishwasher while my husband is sound asleep
Yeah.
snoring.
Hope everybody else is
And
getting a good night's sleep because I'm doing dishes.
because I'm not, right? And at the same time, I was exercising, I'm eating healthy, like doing all the things, thinking everything is right.
Yeah.
And then one night around midnight, and I should have been in bed and I wasn't, but around midnight, I mean, I will never forget this. I remember so specifically. I'm standing at my kitchen counter looking at one of my kids' papers. Okay. And I didn't like the way the teacher graded it. Like I thought she graded it wrong and he had some things that were right. Anyway, I don't know what triggered inside of me, but something, because all of a sudden my heart started racing like it wouldn't stop. Okay. And I'm talking like pounding. So I, of course, am like, okay, God, I'll go to bed. I hear you. I should have been in bed 2 hours ago. I'll go upstairs, get my pajamas on, trying to like just lay down and breathe. And my heart is still, I get up, I put my exercise band on. Y'all, this is a while ago, right? When we have bands, not fancy watches. Okay. Cause I needed to my heart rate. My heart rate was up in the 1s. and I was
Oh my
doing
God.
nothing. I was doing nothing except laying there and like sweating. Now I have sweat dripping off of me. I was like, well, I think I'm actually going to have to wake up my husband and call 911
Yeah, that's
because
terrifying.
nothing is like
Oh my
not
gosh.
changing. So we called 911. The paramedics showed up. I was actually in supraventricular tachycardia, and they said, we're going to give you an injection. It's just going to feel like you're being punched in the stomach. I'm an only child. Didn't have any brothers. That feels awful to me. Okay. So they're
Yeah.
going to punch me in the stomach. They're going to stop my heart and it's going to restart on its own at a pattern that it needs to be beating at. Okay.
What's
So
that, like epi? Did
that's,
they?
I don't know what exactly they get. All I know is they gave me an injection. So
Yeah.
I'm out. I come back. I'm like, my breathing returns back to normal. And I, of course, I'm like, okay, great. I'm good. I'm going to go back to bed. Like, thanks. Thanks for helping. I'm going to go back to bed, or
Uh-huh.
go to sleep.
No,
Oh, no.
nope, I'm still freaked out.
All the things. But that right there was my wake up call that I
I
could
would
not
say.
keep living the way that I was living. That was my body going, hey, something's wrong here and you need to deal with it. And so that is when I started doing all the research I could. I was still teaching, but I started doing
Mhm.
all the research that I could about how I really need to be taking care of myself. And I needed to make success look differently for me. So,
Yeah.
and within diving in all of that, I have learned so much. As you heard, I have many certifications in things that have helped me so that now I can help other people. And what I have learned is that there's a difference between a high achiever and a peak performer. And I was very much living as a high achiever, which landed me in what I would say is burnout. And so now that's why it's my mission to help people not get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had an actual heart attack. Like that was a episode, a bad one, right? But you could have had an
Yeah.
actual heart
Yes.
attack. Like you're lucky that you got the warning shot as opposed
Yes.
to, something terrible. But I think that there are probably, I mean, we have all tried to be the perfect employee, the perfect mom, the perfect everything, right? And anybody who's even a little type A is like totally like, yeah, I went to the gym and then I woke the kids up and then and every bit was scheduled because you're like, and then after dinner we have to do something fun. Maybe we do a craft together. It's like you are seriously asking for it. If you are trying to make everything happen for everyone, nobody has that in them to do that for that many days, years in a row, right? It's just it's
Yes.
incredible. I guarantee that a lot of people will relate to that.
And for me, that's how it showed up. Other
Mhm.
people, it shows up as digestive issues. It shows up as something even worse. That's the C word. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
something can happen in our body that triggers anything. And we also know as busy type A people, we often shove anything down like, oh, that's bothering me. Well, I don't have time to deal with it. I'll deal with it later. And then we
Uh-huh.
ignore it. Mine just got to the point where I couldn't ignore anything. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that
I
was
had to deal with
impossible.
it.
When your heart
Mhm.
rate is at 190, you can't think about anything but your heart rate. Yeah, I
Right.
can
Uh-huh.
only imagine that that
Yeah.
was terrifying. Coming out of that episode, obviously you have this light bulb moment. Did you immediately start putting things into place to like make change? How did you determine what that change looked like? I mean,
That's
seriously,
such
like
an
how do you
interesting
get from
question.
point A to point B?
Well, so I did a lot of research, okay?
Mhm.
And knowledge is great. And you literally have to change your mindset to be able to adapt into what you need to be because we are
Yeah.
programmed and driven. And there was
Mhm.
a reason why that life was serving me, right? And so I had to
Mhm.
reprogram everything, which when I say I've done work on myself, I've done work on myself because
Mhm.
that was a lot of it. For me, one of the things that I had to start with personally, I grew up in the dance world, okay? And in the dance world, when you're competing, it is all about perfection. Like
Mhm.
if you're
Yeah.
not perfect, well, you're in second or third place, right? So it is
Mhm.
that perfection. It comes with all the body image stuff, like everything. So
Mhm.
I had to go back and release some of those things that were just ingrained in me in childhood, and everybody's story is different. And there's a lot of us that have had things like that, with us from our sports, from training, from whatever that have led us into how we behave or how we think we need to behave. So I had to do a lot of work on that for myself. I mean, and I'm talking hiring coaches. I worked with a therapist. I worked with multiple coaches to really get myself into a good place to be able to help others.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the work that would take. Just, we've had this conversation, Mandy, on a couple of different episodes with just all the changes in life since leaving corporate and all the things. I feel like everything has been turned upside down and on its head a couple of times now. And even just in small doses, it can be very, very overwhelming to
Yeah.
to feel it like affect your health in that way and know that you have to make a change and
Yes.
then figure out like, okay, where do I even start? Like, I'm willing to look anywhere.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
commend you for taking the warning. Congratulations, you're alive and well here today with us. That's big news, but wow, what a story.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I had to really do is, when I talk about the difference between a high achiever and a peak performer, I had to really
Mhm.
look at those and be like, okay, this is what's driving your behavior. And if you keep doing this, like, so here's the shifts that have to be made, as well as for me, I'm like an all or nothing person, right? All or
Me
nothing.
too.
You know what I mean? Like, we're either going to the gym and working out or whatever exercise you do, right?
Mhm.
At 110%, or we're not going to go.
Or
Like,
we're
I'm
not
not
doing
going to
it at
go
all.
and half ass it. Like, that's
Mhm.
not
Yep.
me until I realized, I tell you what, and I had a personal trainer and she would kick my butt. And she would also say, and you know what you really need, Kelly? Yoga. And I'm like, yoga? Good Lord, yoga doesn't burn calories. I'm just going to be laying on a mat. Like, I mean, it sounded awful. And do you know what the
Yeah.
one thing that I needed? I needed
Yeah,
yoga.
you needed to
Yeah.
slow down. Yeah.
Yes,
Slow down,
because I was
recenter.
literally in like a fight or flight,
Mhm.
going from one thing to the next. Like my body was in like fight or flight all day long. Then I'd go
Mhm.
exercise super hard, which is also putting your body in fight or flight. And I needed
Mhm.
to relax and I needed
Mhm.
to get into my parasympathetic system so that I was just resting and digesting and healing. And
Mhm.
that was a huge for me just to be able to go to a yoga class and like chill. That was
Mhm.
And at
that
first,
was
I'm
like
sure it was
one.
excruciating to like make
It
yourself
was.
slow down, feel so out of body that and out of
Yes.
control.
Yes. And it feels so counterintuitive to what we know about success, right? When you think about it, right? Do more, be more, like,
Mm-hmm.
all the things, the grind,
Nothing is ever enough.
one of the things I talk about in my book is the whole no pain, no gain, right? So if
Mhm.
you've heard, the no pain, no gain, like we've just lived with that mantra, especially if you're someone that goes to the gym, like that's just the mantra, right? And so then I think about 75 hard. Okay. You all know about 75 hard?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we
70,
are failures at 75 hard,
I
yes.
made
Well,
it.
let me
both
I
of
tell
made
you.
it a
us.
half a day.
Oh,
Well,
I was like, I thought you were going to say that you made it. I'm like, that's a
No,
liar. I look at you, you're a liar.
no,
here's my
I
thought
didn't
on
even
that,
make it
right?
half
First of
a
all,
day.
by the time I ever heard about 75 hard, I was already had done the work to go, "Oh, no, I'm not doing that. Okay. But when I
Yeah.
think about it, people do 75 hard for 75 days. And the people that, there's the 1% that can do it well, get through it, whatever. Most people are not going to do it well. Okay. And if they do it well, by the time they get to the end, they're like, oh my God, finally I can have carbohydrates, I can have alcohol, and then they swing all the way back
All the way
over,
back.
Mhm. Yep.
right? Okay. And so
Mhm.
then I was like, oh, then I heard about 75 medium. And 75 medium allows you some flexibility. And y'all would have done well on 75 medium, I'm
I've
sure.
never heard
Possibly.
of
I've heard of
75
75
medium.
soft.
Yeah.
That
Well,
one might be the best for me.
right? So, but what happens is that often the type A, the go getters, we think that life needs to be 75 hard when
Yeah.
really 75 medium or 75 soft is
Mhm.
sustainable. So I'd
Yes.
like to take the
Yeah.
saying, no pain, no gain into no pain, more gain, right? Like
Okay.
I was in pain and landed me in the hospital because my heart was like this. Whereas
Mhm.
when I'm not, and when I'm not in pain per se, I actually have more gain and can be sustainable and have
Yes.
real like success that's easy, right? My book series is called Succeed with Ease. And it doesn't mean easy, but ease is the foundation of success, not the opposite of it,
Yeah.
right? So,
Mhm.
so,
Well, you make a
ease
great
isn't the
point
opposite
because
of
if you
success, it's the foundation.
you make it hard on yourself, like I know myself. if I try to rise to a challenge that's way up here, I can probably get through it for a little while, right? Like mind over matter, you can muscle through it. But to think that this is going to be my lifestyle forever is probably really dumb of me to assume, because I'm not. I know who I am at the
Yeah.
core. To start a
When
few habits that can be lifestyle changes versus a
Yes.
program seems a little more
yes.
sustainable.
And I don't know if you all have ever seen I did not create this, but it's like the efficiency bell curve that goes along with performance and stress. Okay. And it's like a bell curve. All right. And
Yeah.
on one end is it goes like this. It goes boredom, comfort, stretch, strain, and then burnout. Okay. So
Okay.
for most of us high achievers, right, that feel like we are in that, yes, high achiever, we live in strain. We get used to strain, which is on the verge of burnout. And in strain, it's overwhelmed, it's overworked, you're stressed to the max, and you're literally living in strain on the verge of that. Okay. Whereas if we can pull back, peak performers live in the optimal zones of comfort and stretch. Okay. Now, stretch, we also need to think about, am I stretching myself in every area of my life? Well, then I'm going to be in strain. So, what is like the one area of my life that I'm giving a little bit of stretch to, right? But also comfort. How much of our life is in comfort? Because we've also heard nothing ever happens in your comfort zone. Right. So then we're always trying to like step out of our comfort zone, step
Yeah.
out of our comfort zone, step out of our comfort zone. And when we're doing that in all areas, we end up in strain, which is next to burnout. Like you teeter into burnout. And so it's really important for us to also realize like comfort is good. Comfort is good. And there can be
Comfort makes me
in
feel
comfort.
guilty.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be everything though. You can be in
Yeah.
comfort. So like I'm in stretch with all things work because I run a business and it has to make money for 3 people, right? But I am okay with at this point in my life being in comfort when it comes to working out. I don't really do that. I try and move my body, but like it's not a focus right now. And when I can lessen up the stretch over here in the business, right? When things get a little bit more comfortable, then I can push myself on that. But right now, if I pushed myself on that too, I would be completely overwhelming myself.
Yeah, then you're in
Right.
strain everywhere because it's too
Yeah.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, this is
Yes.
a
Yes.
very interesting topic for sure.
Yeah.
Kelly, you were
So
going to
when
say
I
something
like,
else.
and when I think about peak performers, the difference is that like high achievers, they will like hustle nonstop to get ahead, where peak performers will prioritize their rest and recovery to stay ahead. They are going to make sure that they have so many vacations, so many days off. They have their what I call intentional self care. And you know what, ladies, if people tell me one more time, like, well, I get my nails done. That's maintenance.
Yeah.
That's
That's
maintenance.
not,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not self-care. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess if you really enjoy it, I don't enjoy getting my
I don't
nails
like
done. So
it.
that's no.
right,
I like
right.
when my
And
nails are
maybe if
pretty, but
you,
I don't like to sit there.
Yeah.
yes,
So it's
correct.
not self-care. Yeah.
Correct. Now, I
Yeah.
did see the place that I go to. I did see two women come in to get pedicures together. It was on a Friday evening. They brought in a bottle of wine with them, and they probably did have some nice self care. They had some conversation going.
Mm-hmm.
They were relaxed, like, okay, which is different than me going in and being like, oh my God, I have to get my nails done because it's time to get them done. Da, 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 da. I'm going to sit there like looking at my watch going, are you done yet? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is not
Hurry up.
self-care to me. Yeah. So it's really thinking about what is self-care for you. And I do look at it in several different categories that can be self-care, right? And so there's your emotional self-care, there's your mental self-care, your physical self-care. There can be, like your connections with people. So thinking about, are you rounding out your rest and recovery in that self-care area in all the different ways that you can? I feel like high achievers do the overcommitment is like a need for them to stay in control.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of protecting your time and energy by really having boundaries in place and thinking about energy management almost over time management, because we're like, time management, sure, I can squeeze that in. I actually have an hour or two there, like whatever. Do I have the energy for it? So shifting that from time management to energy management when you're talking about setting boundaries.
Absolutely. So when you were talking about self-care, right? So, and maintenance, right? I feel like to me, working out is maintenance, right? It doesn't feel like self-care to me because it's not something that helps me wind down or takes my mind off of other stuff. But I figured out a few years ago, we did this weight loss challenge at work, and I am better on a team. Like, I don't want to let the team down. I'll let myself down all the time. I hate that about me. So, but I lost like 22 pounds or something during that time because I focused on it. But the only way that I could focus on it was that I had to do something while, like, I would read while I was walking on the treadmill, or I would listen to a podcast, or and it felt like me time at that time. And that's the first time that it really felt like self-care. All right. And it felt like I was just taking breaks for me to be happy and get my mind off of work and all of the stresses of travel and all the things that we were doing. And that made all the difference. Now, it's a little harder because I don't enjoy going to the gym, right? And I can still go listen to a podcast and walk and all that stuff, but I just have to get back into it and prioritize the self-care again over the work time. I'm not balancing that very well right now, but I didn't really think about that until you started saying, because I always thought the gym and all of that is self-care, but it's maintenance, right? If you don't enjoy doing it, right? And that's interesting to me.
Yeah, you were definitely stepping on my toes just in talking about that aspect of things for sure, because I'm thinking, no, if I have free times, I definitely give it to the kids, or, there's free time. I'm at work a little bit later. I really can't name something that I do that is just for me, which
Besides
maybe we need to
scrolling,
fix.
the
Okay, but
scrolling
that's the thing. Like,
is,
I'm wasting
mhm,
time that
it's,
could be spent. Yeah, it could be spent for self-care of in some variation. But
Yeah.
doom scrolling is getting me nowhere.
yeah. No, it's not. I would love to hear what you think about doom scrolling because it's sometimes I'm like, I have talked too much today. I've made too
Hmm.
many decisions. I have managed too many things happening around me. I need to just listen to people tell stories about the horrible things of their life or the happy things of their life or the whatever. That's what I need right now on TikTok. And I don't think it's self-care. Actually, I'm sure that it's not.
It's like
Yeah.
dissociation.
Yes. Yes. I was just going to
That's
say that.
mhm.
And, if I feel like it also, when you get done, do you feel more uplifted? Do you feel rejuvenated? Because typically what happens is whether it be the TikTok doom scroll, whether it be the Netflix binge, whatever, we just become like unconscious of sitting. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you know what I mean? Like
We're just
program.
wasting time. Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
it's almost
And
like
then, and
it's
then
the hours have gone by and my brain didn't have to work. And for some reason, that feels like a treat, but it didn't actually do anything for my brain or for myself. It just turned me off for a little while.
Mhm.
Yeah, dissociating. I do that a lot, I guess.
Yeah, I think I
I
do too.
I
That's
don't
my guilty
like that.
pleasure. Yeah. Thanks a
Mhm.
lot, Kelly. Now we have to change.
Yeah, we learn a lot about ourselves on this podcast and it's one of the
We
best
do.
things. And but it's hard because how do you put all of the things that we've been taught into practice?
Right. Now,
Yeah.
now let me say this for a minute, okay? Like we can all take a deep breath because whatever we want to call the bad habit, right? Or the thing that we're like, "Oh my God, like I do it, but it's really not serving me, whatever."
Mhm.
It is serving you. It's serving you in some way, and you're doing it to protect yourself in some way. Okay.
Mhm.
And so when like, sometimes we just have to stop and acknowledge, like, this is how I'm protecting myself right now. And it is the doom scroll or whatever that is. And then when you're ready to make a change, and I always say, I'm gonna take this for a minute to because I think it's just easy. When we talk about people that are stress eaters, okay? So it's really difficult to just be like, well, just stop eating, okay? But if you allow yourself some choices, okay? I'm just gonna, like, before I put anything in my mouth right now, because I'm not hungry and my stomach's not growling. So before I put anything in my mouth, I'm just gonna go stand out on my deck and get some sunshine and take some deep breaths, and then I can come in and eat, right? Or it's allowing that's one choice. Another choice is to really deal with what we're dealing with that's making us want to eat. I'm overwhelmed because I have 16 projects due in, the next 5 hours, like whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's dealing with that. Like, oh, it's dealing with the uncomfortableness and sitting through the emotion for a minute. And the third choice is always, I'm just going to go eat. That's my protection mechanism right now. But I have three choices. So I can deal with it and really like deal with it head on. I can use kind of just a distracting, right? Like the disassociation. Let me go outside. Let me just take some breath air, feel the sun on my face. And then I can eat, or I can just eat. And we can think about that in the way that, whatever you're trying to do at the end of your day that ends up in the scrolling. Scrolling is always an option. It's always an option. Or you could try going on a 10-minute nature walk, even if it's just around your subdivision down a couple of houses and come back, like whatever. Or you can really address with, what am I feeling right now that's making me want to get into the doomsday? What do I really need to address?
So tell
That's
me,
really smart.
just
Sorry, go ahead.
some free advice from you. I would love. The reason that I doom scroll at the end of the day, the reason that happens is that I need for everything else to shut off for a little while. I need to not make a decision. I need to not have to have an opinion in a conversation. You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel bad. I'll be talking to Dan and he will he loves a deep conversation, which I love too. Just sometimes the day has already taken all of my energy that I'm like, I don't think I can engage in this conversation to the level that you need me to. So is it okay if I just look at TikTok? And he's like, yeah, like we'll pick it back up, but why do I need so desperately to not be part of that conversation? Or why? Because it's not about the conversation, it's anything and everything, right? But he needs my brain to work harder than it is possible at the end of the day. How do I fix that?
Well, you need a break. Like,
It's
you
me, Kelly.
clearly need a break. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that's like, you need a break.
Mhm.
Okay. If you don't want to do it on TikTok, how else could you do it that would give you the mental capacity, right? Like just the
Exactly
brain,
what you just said. Go on a walk or, like clean up the
meditate.
house or, just do something that doesn't involve peopling. Yeah.
Even with
No, you're good.
TikTok, Mandy
Mhm.
Alt, even with
Mhm.
TikTok, does it really give you the mental capacity when you get done with that to go have this deep conversation? Or do you feel even more, even though you're not engaging in conversation and you're just sitting there listening and, some of them are funny and, whatever, do you feel rejuvenated to go have the conversation?
Oh, no. No, that's a night ending ritual, right? Like we never plan for me to get back there tonight. Like we'll
Tonight.
pick this up tomorrow, right? But there could be things, you're right, that I could do that would refresh me and now I'm ready to go for another 2 hours of the evening, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But
And the interesting thing about habits, everybody's like, well, I'm not good at putting new habits in place. Okay, what you're really good is keeping the old habits. Like, we're all good at habits. You know what I mean? Like, we all are really good at habit. It's just, are you doing the habit you want to do? So no one should say, well, I'm not good at habits, because we're all good at habits. But do you need a new habit to replace that? And if so, then what is a thing that can almost like disrupt what you're doing? You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a disruptor for you to not go over, pick up the phone and do the TikTok thing. Like, it has to be something different that you're attaching it to that you always do. Does that make sense? Like, that's how you kind of create a new habit. So anyway, just throwing that out there. But Mandy, I
Yeah,
cut you
for
off. So I
me,
apologize.
in breaking a habit that does not serve me, it has to be replaced with something that I like even more than whatever that bad thing was. For some things in my life, that hasn't happened yet, so I'm still rocking old habits. What I was going to say a while ago was, Mindy, we've had conversations a million times about you wanting to bring the walks back in your life, and maybe that's the time of day. Like maybe you need to get used to a nighttime walk. Get some orange safety vests for the pups and go for a nighttime walk so that can be what really releases things for you. And then you can come back feeling like that you're in a good headspace and you crawl in bed in a relaxed state. And maybe then you can have a deep conversation. Or maybe just deep conversations aren't late night for you.
right. Yeah, my brain is not up for that. But that's when his brain starts going, and he's like, have you ever thought about how they came over here when America was, you know what I mean? He's just like, seriously, he's like wants to get deep about stuff that, and it's so random. But I think I know why I don't like to walk here. Like, I don't like to walk in Lake St. Louis because it's so hilly and there's no sidewalk. And it's not as enjoyable for me to move my body
Yeah.
that way. I don't want to hike, right? I
Yeah, I
want
like
to
flat
go on a
surfaces.
walk. Yeah. And so it's like, really, I have to leave like I need to drive somewhere and go somewhere else. And so that's what breaks up I just want to go out for a 30-minute walk. And so that's just frustrating because I just now live in an area that I don't enjoy walking the same. So it's like,
Yeah.
and truthfully, what I should do is just walk up to the church and just walk around the parking lot and do a
Around the
bunch of
parking lot.
laps. And maybe I'll like that even more because I can, beat a record or of how many laps I can do, or who knows.
Yeah, measure
But
what you're doing.
What a great solution you just came up with.
I know
This
it
is
all
what
is
we do,
working. Keep
Kelli.
going.
We keep the
Yes.
therapy going right here. I did want to come back to something you were talking about earlier, and I think we kind of glossed over it just a little bit. We talked about high achievers, and obviously the goal is to become a peak performer. And as a high achiever, when you acknowledge that you are living in strain and teetering on burnout on all of these things, and you want to be a high achiever, what does that process look like? If you were to give me, overarching ABC, here are things to think about to get from high achiever to peak performer, what does that process look like?
So I look at it like there's 4 pillars, okay? And the first one is mindset. Like your mindset, so when I released my series that's coming out, I made sure I did my mindset book first, okay? Because I feel like getting your mindset wrapped around it is the first thing that has to happen. Then we look at focus, well-being, and connection. And when you put all 4 of those pillars together, that is what takes you from high achiever to a peak performer. Okay. But it has to start with mindset because we have to stop tying our worth to productivity.
Say
Right?
that again. Say it again,
For the
louder.
people in the back.
Yes. High achievers have to stop tying their worth to productivity. And then really knowing that worth is intrinsic. We are all worthy of everything we possibly want, and it's not earned through an output. And
So
that's
true.
huge. So one of the things that I do as a coach is I do a 1-day it's called a 1-day breakthrough experience. Okay. And there's reasons that we have, part of me, my worth, because I grew up in the dance world, it was tied to, are you in first place? Are you perfect? Like my worth was tied to that just because that's how I processed things. You know what I mean? Now somebody else might have been in the dance world and had never processed it that way, but that's how I did. I did the 1-day breakthrough experience on myself. And now I do it on other people to really go back and unlock y'all, this 1-day breakthrough experience is literally like 5 years of therapy in 1 day. It is intense. We bust through stuff so that you can move on. Okay. I mean, it is intended for it's 1 day for people that don't have 5 years. I want to take care of this today. And so in that was one of the things for me is realizing that I needed to have self-love for myself, real self-love, that my worth is never determined by anything because I am worthy of it all. And I love myself deeply for every imperfection that I have. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to try to work on some of them and, get better at some things. It doesn't mean that, but I can still love myself exactly as I am if nothing changed. And that's pivotal too sometimes, depending on where you are in the process.
Yeah.
And it is deep. You know what I mean? It
So
is
deep.
Yeah.
when you
I'm
do
like,
the
I feel
deep,
like I have a lifetime of homework. Send me to your 1 day.
because when you do
Sign her
that,
up.
literally can compel it'll propel you further faster. You know what I mean? Because if
Yeah.
not, you're always going to keep hitting up at walls, type
Yeah.
things. But I don't know. That's just my experience with it. And every one of my clients that has done the breakthrough, they go further. I don't want to say faster, meaning like the grind, but they can get faster because they dealt with some things that they needed to deal with that literally Like, I didn't even know that was I'm going to call it a little trauma of being in the dance world. Like, I had a great childhood, y'all. I had a great childhood. But for me, the way that I like carried things and processed things and my perception of things, I had to deal with that.
Mhm.
Because that's what
Yeah,
led me
it's
to
heavy.
burnout, right? Needing to be perfect. Like, I had to be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, had to let that go.
So crazy. All right, so what's the next step?
Okay, so when you look at the four pillars together,
Mhm.
okay, the four pillars. So we need
Mhm.
mindset, focus, well-being, and connection. And when you put those all together, and it's really like, in my first book, there's 25 principles. 25 principles to outsmart burnout and redefine success. And it's looking at what's one of them that you're willing to do right now that could be easy for you. God, don't pick the hardest one. Start with
Yeah.
something easy to get some momentum going,
So you have
right?
momentum
And
and so
then
that you can be proud of it.
yes, exactly. Like we got to press the easy button sometimes. And do you know what high achievers do? They don't always press the easy button. They're like, I want to do this the hard way, 75 hard. No, let's press the easy button. Pick something that is easy for you. Then I think it's shifting from time management to energy management of really how are you maintaining your energy? And do you have the energy and capacity for what you're taking on? And if not, it is a hard no. Like that's another thing. We have to be able to say no and not have the guilt come in.
Write that one down, Mandy.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna say.
And
I'm
it's
my
interesting
middle name
because
is
when I do,
guilty.
yes, when I
And we just shouldn't be, you know?
there's yeah,
Yeah.
there's five negative emotions: anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. Okay. And when I do my breakthrough, we actually level off those emotions so that they're neutral, right? Because one of them is all like mine, anger was higher. I work with a lot of women whose guilt is higher. It just depends on what experiences you have had. Okay. But a lot of women have the guilt. They have the mom guilt. There's Catholic guilt. I mean, there's all kinds of guilt that's out
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean? So anyway, but when you can level those off, doesn't mean you're not going to feel it, but it's not going to be at this like level that it shouldn't be at. You know what I mean? Like you should be able
Yeah.
to say no and be okay. Like it's okay. And I mean, that is a big thing to really like release and let go of. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
life changing. Like it's life changing when it's just a normal thing and not like an elevated thing. So after you have looked at energy management instead of time management, right? What you have the energy for, then it's time to move into your well-being. And are you really putting in all different forms of self care so that you are very intentional about are you doing something for your body? Are you doing something for your mind? Are you doing something for your emotions? Right. And that might be journaling. That could be deep conversations. So it could be a walk.
Mhm.
Self leadership means being aware of what's happening in your body and your brain and really being able to respond instead of react. And I think when we can do that and we really start checking in with ourselves, that self awareness piece, then like we can lead ourselves better. I tell a story about me skydiving. And I was doing a static line jump, and the person before me, your parachute is automatically supposed to open. Okay. But you go through this
Yep.
all day.
Supposed to.
Yes, supposed to open, but you're not tandem. You are by yourself. Okay. But you do this full
Mhm.
training all
Okay.
day long. So anyway, we get up there and the guy that went before me, his parachute did not open, y'all. I was like, my gosh. And the instructor pointed to me that
Like there's nothing making me get out of
yes.
this
And he
plane right
Yeah,
now.
pointed
like
to me and was like, you're next. Right.
no, I'm
Oh
not.
my gosh. I mean, I just froze up there.
Oh,
I was terrified, but I finally stepped into action and I went from panic to peace in seconds because once my parachute opened, y'all, if you've ever been skydiving, it's the most amazing thing ever.
Nope.
It is so
mm,
peaceful once the parachute opens and you're just floating and
right, sure.
gliding, right?
After the panic.
Yes, after the
Yeah.
panic, okay?
It's the panic I can't handle.
Yes, but I think what we have to
Mm-mm.
remember is that in everyday life, we truly have no idea when the panic is coming. Okay. And
Yep.
oftentimes we put ourselves
Mhm.
in the situation where we create the panic, we create the chaos, which we're not saying no,
Mhm.
we're not taking care of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like we're creating that.
Yep.
However, when we pause, when we pull our own parachute, then we can truly get back
Mhm.
into peace. And the difference is that peak performers listen to themselves early. and they already are ready to lead themselves through the storm, lead themselves instead of the storm happening and them trying to figure out how to get out of the storm.
I love that line that you said about responding rather than reacting. Because that's such a powerful statement, because especially in those highly emotional situations, the reaction is what comes naturally, and then you like regret what comes out of your mouth, or then later you think about it and you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't really that great. But the pause,
Yes.
the thought, and then the response.
Yes.
You really have to train yourself through that. I can't imagine that to be an easy process, but we talked about earlier about habits, right?
Yes.
We all have them. You just
Yeah.
have to create the new ones.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it really is just the power of the pause. Like we should all be
Yeah.
telling ourselves, and that's nothing new, y'all. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't create that. Like, but the power of the pause, like pause. That should be something that is going through our mind. All like pause.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's almost like thinking about, some people are so much better at responding to things through text message. I watched this TikTok the other day, and the girl was like, I can't talk to my mother unless it's through text message because she makes me crazy, and I will just say, like I can't form the right words. I can't. And she said it took me days to form this text message to say what I needed to say, right? And to not handle it wrong, right? So it's like, act like you are going to respond in a text message, right? And you
Take your
probably get a
time.
better reaction, whenever you actually think it through. And I'm sure a lot of people use this for their personal life as well. Like moms, I mean, how many times have you flown off the handle when you could have said, those are your choices, instead of saying, are you kidding me? I can't believe that you're doing, like, it's
Yeah.
just,
That's happened in multiple relationships in my life where I'm like, just talk to me. And it's like, no, this is actually better for me if we do it this way, because you get just words, less emotions, you read into less, you activate each other a lot less. It's really kind of brilliant.
yeah, all of it. I do want to ask you about self-awareness. And here's the reason. So I have this cat, and he won't leave
Hey,
my
kitty, kitty.
side. We have both been very self-aware and not at all self-aware in some situations, right? Everyone has their blind spots. If somebody is just not self-aware, you know what I mean? Like, because you've run into people through the years and there's no self-awareness. How do you get there? How do you find self-awareness? Like, not me trying to help other people find their self-awareness, but if I'm somebody who's like, I've been told that maybe I'm not so self-aware, how do I focus in on that?
I think the first thing that you have to be really willing is to explore it. And you have to be ready to really go inward and do the work that you need to do. Right. And some of the hardest things I feel like is that we are mirrors for each other. And the people that drive us the most crazy, it's because they're a mirror for us. And so there's something
much
that
alike.
we can learn. Yes, there's something we can learn from them. And it's going to drive us crazy until we learn the lesson. And when we learn the lesson for ourselves, then it won't drive us crazy as much. But it's being self-aware enough to know that what are my triggers, right? What are my triggers that just take me from 0 to 60 and like, rah,
Yeah.
and then being able to really look at that and go to the root of it. And that, there are people that like aren't ready to do that work yet. There are people that still have to just get used to, or just really start going, oh, I do act that way. You know what I mean? Like before they're ready to even do the work is just to recognize it. So
Yeah.
first is self-awareness, and then after that, you can learn how to self-regulate once you really know what your triggers are. Even coming off to, it's not only the lows, right? What we would call the lows of when we're like, oh, I'm not proud of how I acted. Also the highs. Like there are people that walk into the room and they're like, 90,000 times happier than everybody else is. And it's awkward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's read the room a minute. Like, let's
Yeah, calm
regulate.
down.
And I'm not saying come down to the negativity by any means, but like, let's
Yeah.
hold on a minute and just like get where we need to be so that we can all have a conversation, I guess. And we're
Yeah.
not like, there's not
Yeah,
a big
throwing
gap
off
in.
the vibe. Yeah,
An
Yeah.
energy
for
gap.
sure.
Yeah, that's a huge piece.
Yeah.
I think that there's a huge piece of that self-awareness piece that is hard for people because of ego.
Oh,
Because it's hard to
absolutely.
admit. It's hard to admit fault. It's hard to, when you only see things from your own perspective, because for you it feels real, it feels authentic and genuine,
Yeah.
or whatever in that moment. It's hard to be able to pull yourself out of your own situation, set the ego aside and say, oh yeah, maybe that was a little bit toxic, or maybe that, I'm actually
Mhm.
perpetuating a bad situation here. And admitting that, like, it's really vulnerable, especially if you're doing that openly with anyone else. But also, it's like, it can take a toll on your self-confidence, so that ego has to be put aside to be able to do that work. So if
Yes.
you can't get past that,
Yes.
you don't get through the front door
Yeah.
of
And we
even
are
the first
really
step.
driven. We are driven human beings by ego and pride.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of just what drives us in general. And then when you can start recognizing like, oh, there's my pride, there's my ego, let me bring it back. How can I bring more
Yeah.
love, compassion, grace into the situation? You know what I mean? And not only to other people. Oh my gosh, this is something I always talk to my clients about. Passion and grace, compassion and grace, compassion and grace. Because we don't give ourselves that. We get mad at ourselves so easily that then that is why we expect so much from other people, right? When it's like, hang on, if I can be compassionate with myself and give myself grace, I can do that even better with other people who have a different perspective than me, who, just all the differences. It's so much easier when we do that to ourselves first, then we can take that outward to others.
I love all of that. All right, I have a question for you. We've talked, this whole episode is about from high achiever to peak performer, and it's so important, right? But can you give me a couple of signs that someone is stuck in high achiever mode? How do they,
Yep.
it's
Yes.
not sustainable. So
Right.
how do you
Right. Right.
help
Right.
Yeah.
them?
So if we just take a minute and just like put up 5 fingers, okay? Like if you can put up 5 fingers and put one down for every of these that rings true for you, right?
Okay.
You feel guilty when you're not being productive. If that's you, put a finger down. You check off a goal and immediately move to the next one. You're like, done, what's next? You have a hard time resting without feeling lazy.
Okay, no, that's not me.
Okay, good. Your worth feels tied. This is a tricky one, but your worth feels tied to how much you accomplished, right? Like I must get a certain amount done in order for me to be successful.
Yeah.
So we're
And then
both getting better at that. We're
good.
working on that.
I mean, but it's still
right,
there,
Mandy?
so I'm gonna give it credit.
Yes, I'm gonna
It's still
I'm gonna
there.
give a half a finger,
I have,
And
yep,
half a
right,
finger.
okay, and then and then how about like I check my email, I check something with work almost before I even do anything else during the day. Like it could be like in the morning, like it could be before I even get out of bed, it could be before I whatever. Like I am checking something from work.
I broke
Yeah.
that habit when I left corporate, and I told Mandy, nope, my email will
Yeah.
not happen when
And
I
you
am
don't
still in
have
the
to.
bed. No,
No,
that's a
I
good
mean,
I
thing.
I
put
Like,
think
that's
down
a
all my
win.
fingers.
yeah.
Yeah,
So those are
it
some
is.
signs. Those are some
Yeah.
signs that you're in high achiever mode. And the first thing that we have to do is be like, okay, high achiever mode is great, except it's going to burn you out and it's a cycle. So we have
Yeah.
to shift to peak performer mode for the sustainability of it.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, if we think about our careers, y'all, we start working when we're 20 and we don't end until we're 60 something. Like we need sustainability through this.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
And
long
yes,
time.
yes, and there are going to be times where yes, things are going to be a little bit more crunch, urgent, whatever. But if you're constantly living in that, that's where the shift has to, because you will end up in burnout. We talked about the curve already. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that's that's the big thing. I had a client who was leading a team of 40, and she was worn out and just wondering, like, oh my gosh, like, how can I keep going and really get my team motivated when I feel like I am just on the edge of burnout. And her team was not responding well to anything. She's frustrated. And when we put in the 4 things that I talk about, it's my framework. Mindset is huge around all this. Focus, energy management, well-being. Are you doing the 6 forms of self-care? And then connection. And when you're doing those, for her, communication improved. Her stress levels dropped, because when your stress levels dropped, you have the capacity to come in from a different place, which is more energized, more just a higher vibe. And so that was amazing. She was more present, more strategic, more effective. And for her, being a business owner, she increased her business by 40K in a quick couple months, because she had the capacity to
Yeah.
lead differently and do things differently. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really crazy how small habits will change that immediately.
Yeah, and you have to do it a little bit at a time too,
Yes.
because I
Yeah.
ride a roller coaster of almost burnout. Like I haven't been completely burned out as a business owner like I was in corporate, but I get almost to burnout and I melt down a little bit, and then I make some things to change it, because I never set boundaries before, and those things are happening now. And but I still let it get out of control sometimes, because I still am that high achiever person. I
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah.
figured out every process and system and boundary to make it all happen. But I love all of these kind of conversations, because it just gives me a few more things to put into place, and then have other people hold me accountable, like ask for my accountability partners to be like, please make sure that
Yeah.
I do this.
I love about what you said, Mandy, is thinking about a pendulum, right? And if the pendulum is over here towards like complete burnout, then we're like, ugh. Or the pendulum is like, oh my God, I've said no to everything. I have all these boundaries in place. I'm bored. There's no getting out of my comfort zone. You're back over here, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, I love what you said, because you have recognized when your pendulum starts to get, you're like, oh, I better do something
Bring it
different,
back.
right? And that to me is the goal. It never means we're not going to be, on the
Yeah.
verge, like whatever, but
Yeah.
can the pendulum swing less, so that you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can see myself going down the wrong road. Let me swing back the other way. And that to me is the goal of really any habit, any behavior change, anything that you want to, because we are creatures and sometimes things come back in, but it's, can
Yeah.
we shift back quicker than letting it just derail?
Yeah. It doesn't derail anymore. So that's good,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we're
That's
moving
growth.
moving in the right direction. Yes, it
I know.
is. It is.
Well, Kelly, this is all like I could sit and talk to you for hours about all of this. It's all so very interesting to me. Mandy and I spend a lot of time together in introspection and why we do what we do and what we need to do to change things, and really diving into these things. And I would imagine that there's a lot of people out there that are resonating with the things that you're saying, these signs and symptoms. So if there was someone that wanted to work further with you or hear more about what it is that you can help with, where do they find you? Give us all your locations so that we can send people your
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I am mostly on LinkedIn because of the people that I
Okay.
work with. That's where they are. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn. My website is my name, kellyrisse.com. And you can find all about me there. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but the platform I use the most is, I have a YouTube channel that has
Oh, cool.
all kinds of, that has all kinds of great pieces of advice and wisdom and tips on it. But the place that I hang out the most on social media is definitely LinkedIn.
We're going to put all of that in the show notes so that people can find you, find your links, LinkedIn and YouTube, and there's so much content there that they can learn. And if you want to do one of Kelli's one-day breakthrough experiences, I recommend it. People rave about how much it changed. Just the one day changed their whole mindset, their whole everything, and let them do their business right now. You can find her on our website for that. So thank you, Kelli. We really appreciate you coming. I assume that we'll probably see you again. You have too much information not to share, so.
I hope
Thank you.
so.
And thank you, ladies, for doing what you do. Seriously, for bringing every guest that you bring on that brings just a little bit different perspective or a new tip or whatever. Like, thank you for doing that, because this is important work. It's important. Like, we have long lives that we want to live and do things and be productive and great citizens and help in our community and our families and all the things, and we have to be well, and we to do them. We have to be lit up and energized to do them. So thank you for just the work that you guys are doing.
We appreciate you saying that, because, even if we are the only ones who get something out of our guests, it's plenty for us, right? We're learning and growing through all these people. But we hope that other people are too, because, you and so many of our guests have just, dropped so many truth bombs and things that people just really needed to hear. So we appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I feel like every episode we bring on a guest and I just keep getting my toes stepped on just a little bit more and a little bit more, but it's exciting because if for no other reason, like I feel like we're getting some personal growth out of it and a little bit more of that self-awareness and openness to, your own responsibility in your own life. So very much appreciate it. Thank you for spending time with us today, Kelli.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.